In this video, I want to run through a basic setup and benefits of Copilot for security. Now, to set this up, we will firstly need to have an Azure subscription. So a prerequisite is an Azure subscription inside the tenant you want to manage and monitor. The second thing is that the AI is going to work across all the signals that you have in the tenant, all the security signals, audit logs, all that sort of stuff. So it's important to have all of those in place so the AI can work across that. Now, once we've got that, we log into the Azure portal as an administrator, and what we can do up here is we can go up to the top here and do a search for Copilot or Security Copilot, and you'll see it listed there. And let us select that, and you'll see at the moment there are no capacities in there. So the way that Security Copilot works is we have to configure something in Azure with a capacity limit, and then we can take advantage of it. So the way that we do that in here is we'll go in here and select the create option here, and we need to select the subscription that this will apply to, and we also need to select resource group. Now, my advice is that you want to create a dedicated resource group that's going to allow you to set permissions and also to do budgeting and monitoring the costs. So go in and create a separate resource group for your Security Copilot, and again, you can do that if you want by selecting the create new below there. Now, I'm just going to give the capacity name, give it a name, so I'm just going to give it a normal name there, no need for anything specific, but again, the idea is it needs to be unique and also make sure that it doesn't have any of the items here that's called out. Select the location in which you want. In this case, I'm going to do it in Australia, and then I'm going to select the option here that if the location is busy, allow Copilot to evaluate prompts anywhere, so that's fine. It's going to overflow into other locations. The capacity region is set to Australia East, and here is the important one here is how many compute units per hour that I want. Now, in essence, you'll notice that the cost here is around $4 US per unit per hour. And the way the billing works at the moment is as soon as I enable this, it will bill me for those $4 for the complete hour, whether I use 1 minute or 59 minutes. So make sure that you keep that in mind. It is basically billed for the whole hour, no matter how much of the hour you're going to use. Now I'm going to bump that up to 2 just so that things can run a little bit quicker here in the demo. You can bump it up as high as you want, but remember the cost will be this US $4 times the number of units you select. Microsoft's recommendation generally is to have 3 security compute units per hour. In this case, I'm going to stick with 2. Now, if I was to leave this on and not make any changes and not disable it or delete it after the fact, you'll see here that I'd be up for around 6,000 US dollars per month, which is not what I want to do. So the important point here is if you are planning to use Security Copilot, as a casual sort of tool, make sure that you go in and turn it off or delete the units when you're finished with it. I'll show you how to do that at the end of the demo. So we go in here and we go acknowledge that I have read and understood and agreed to the terms. So now that I push the button, it's going to go and create the Security Copilot. In my environment, it's going to charge me that secure units 2 times US $4. So I'm going to be up for $8 for this initial demo here. So all looks good. I'm going to go in and push create. You'll see here that it's initializing the deployment. So give that a moment to complete. And then when it comes back, it will basically take me to an option where I can then click on that and go into a dedicated chat style interface. So the deployment is now in progress here, so it'll take a minute for that to complete. Alright, so now you'll see I can go to the resource, but the option here I want to select is finish up the setup in Copilot for security. Now I have done this before, so there is a number of, when I do select this is going to take me directly into my chat interface because it's going to pick up the pre-existing settings that I have in place. So I have written a blog post that will take you through the actual process when you do that. So let me just show you that quickly. So here's one of the few posts that I've put up around Security Copilot that I recommend you go and review. You'll see that you can do the setting up of the capacity, which we did just in Azure. You can actually do it in the portal, which I'll show you shortly. And after you've done that, and whether you set it up in Azure or whether you set it up inside this Security Copilot portal, you'll see that I need to select the Security Compute unit. So if you do it in the portal, it does it in Azure in the back end for you. Now, once it's basically done that and you go to the portal, you'll see that you're asked to or confirm that the data will be stored in your location. So you get that. You also get the ability here to improve Copilot, so you can turn those on and provide feedback into Microsoft, and then you can determine who has access to Copilot here. Typically, it's going to be the global administrator, but you can adjust that if you want. You'll then get you're all set, and you'll see here that the URL we want to go to is securitycopilot.microsoft.com. You'll see that I've given it a capacity name as per the Azure setup, and I've also located it in a specific resource group. So you'll see here this is confirmation that I've basically done it before. Now, this is what the portal looks like. So that is the endpoint we should end up with when we click this button. So we go back to Azure. All that setup, like I said, you can do in Azure. You can also do it in the dedicated portal, but I prefer to do it in Azure. So I'm going to go in here and select the option to finish doing the setups. And you'll see it'll take me to that portal I talked about, securitycopilot.microsoft.com. You'll see here that this is a ChatGPT style interface. You'll see here that I basically go down the bottom here and I would type in the prompts that make sense. So let's run through a few prompts here to give you an idea. So I'm going to put in this one here, what should I worry about in my environment today? So let's run that just to give you an idea of what basically is happening there. All right, and let us wait for that. So the idea is what's going to happen is it's going to go off and query a number of sources that you've got already set up. So again, we need to set up Sentinel, Defender for Endpoint, Intune, all that sort of fun stuff, and it's going to then go out and query, get the information, and provide it in this chat style interface for us as well. And you'll see here it's loading and evaluating. It's going to work through all that. So as with any AI, it's going to take a couple of moments to work through that and give us a result on that. You'll see it's querying different items inside the security environment, Defender, threat intelligence, so on. And it will prepare our response for us. And there you'll see it'll come back here in a sec. So I'm still working through some of the options there. So what I might do is just pause the video, let this complete, come back when it's all done and show you the result. So you'll see here that I've come back and I got my prompt here, and basically it's telling me that there are no new threats detected in my environment. Now you'll notice that the threat intelligence here is still spinning away, so it's looking at all the global threats from Microsoft and evaluating those inside my environment. So that will potentially take an amount of time to do that. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to basically delete this prompt. So let's get rid of it and stop it running. So we can go in and put another one. So another one that I'll give you here as an example, I think is a very helpful one, is to basically give me a list of the Sentinel incidents created in the last 24 hours and generate an executive report. So one of the benefits of AI here is not only can we query the information using natural language in a conversational manner, we can also ask for the output in a specific manner. So in this case, I'm going to ask for an executive report for a non-technical audience. So that's a real big benefit here, because a lot of the information in things like Defender XDR and Defender for Cloud Apps and so on is very technical in nature and requires a human being to translate that into a non-technical summary. But here we can use the AI, Security Copilot, to do that for us. Now, as this runs, you'll notice here that it's working through the different environments. You'll notice here that it's going to a particular plugin, which is the Azure Sentinel, which we'll talk about in a moment. And if we scroll down here, you'll see that it gives us a nice little report here that we can basically then copy and paste and send off to our executives. You'll see that we can also export it to Excel, and we can also expand this into a bigger window if we want. So extremely powerful in the fact that it can work across the multiple security products and then can give us things like an executive summary aimed at a non-technical audience. So super handy here. Now you'll see over here on the right, you'll see that I deleted a prompt before, but I can pin that, I can edit it, I can resubmit it, I can also delete it. And then over here, we can also select the prompt if we want. Now down on the interface here, we type in our request. You'll see you've got obviously the submit the prompt, but this one here called scopes. This allows us to basically determine what's known as the plugins here. So we can go in and say, look, I want to have these plugins from Azure Firewall, Web Application Firewall. You'll see that there are more here. And most of the Microsoft ones are already enabled by default. Now notice that you may also need to go in and set up some of these. So you'll see Azure AI Search hasn't been set up. I need to go in and set that up. I've already set up for a Sentinel, and again I can go in once it's set up and select the cog and modify that setup. Now you'll notice here that I can also set up non-Microsoft plugins. So for example, things like Abuse IPDB is also available to you, as well as a public website, and you'll see here that you can add custom plugins, so keep an eye out for those custom plugins. The other thing you can add here is you can add your own files. So what that means is you might have a knowledge base, you might have articles that have been written or how-tos or whatever that you can upload and add to the power of Copilot and using the AI across those style environments as well. Now, if we go into the top left-hand corner here, you'll see that you get a menu, pull-down menu. Home will take me back to this page. My sessions shows me any of the sessions. Now, it will keep those sessions for around 90 days, I believe, so you'll be able to come in and go back and look at those, and that will still be valid, again, if you turn the resources off and turn them back on. So it's a good thing to have. We've still got that capability. The idea here is we can look at a prompt book library. So rather than having to go in and develop your own scripts necessarily, what you can do here is you can go in and run a series of prompts that have been pre-configured. So again, kind of think of it like a script. So if I go in here, for example, and just use the example of the the Sentinel incident one. So the idea is I would select that. It's going to throw up a list of prompts here. So these are the 7 or so prompts it's going to run for me. All I need to do is put the Sentinel incident in there, and it will substitute that in each one of these prompts and then run through all of them and then allow me to add additional prompts here. So the idea is that if you have an incident, you can run this prompt book. It will run the the 7 or so prompts. If you have malware attack, if you have a standard process you want to go to, you can put it inside a prompt book, and then you can use that to basically have that repetitive process. So again, kind of think of it like scripting, but it's natural language, prompt after prompt after prompt that you would use to find information. So here we've got our owner settings, we've got our role assignments, and probably the most important one is to go and have a look at the usage sessions here, right? Now this is going to show me how many of those security compute units that I am chewing up. So you'll see here that initially when I set this up, I configured 2. I'm going to be billed for those 2 immediately for the period of time, in this case, for each hour or part thereof that I'm using. And you'll see here that you can see that I, went up to 2.2 or whatever over the period of time. I can go in and change this if I want, so I can go up and down that on the fly if I want. But I'm going to leave that setting. But if you are maxing out the amount of security compute units required, you'll see the top of this go red here, basically letting you know that you've exceeded that sort of limit. So there's a little bit of play here, but the more you max it out, the more concurrent prompts and questions and usages that you use with Security Copilot, the more that demand that's going to place on it. And when you hit your limit, there'll be a little bit of leeway, I suppose, and then it's going to obviously throttle up to that limit that you've set. So you may need to go in and select more SCUs. Remember that when you do, you will pay an additional fee for that. All right, so you see the sessions that I've run here. You'll see that I can also click an option here when I want to get started with my prompt books. You'll see here it's going to allow me to go in there and give me a number of standard prompts here, and the last button here is the prompts. So if I select that, that's going to allow me to search through my prompt book, system capabilities, all that sort of stuff. So don't, again, overlook that capability. Now, Security Copilot doesn't only just appear in the chat interface here in securitycopilot.microsoft.com. It appears in a number of other places throughout the Microsoft environment. One of the places it does appear once enabled is inside Intune. So the best example here is if I go into tenant administration here, and then I go into, if I go into troubleshooting and I go in and search for a user, So let's have a look for a particular user, and we will look at their devices. Alright, so you'll see a list of their devices. So let's select the Surface Pro device here. Now you'll see I get the Copilot prompting up the top here, built into the interface. So let's go in and select to explore this device. And let's go in and summarize this device, and I'll put in the prompt. Let's let that generate, come back and have a look. Okay, so we can see now that this has come back and given us, the information about our device. All right, so you'll see it's quite comprehensive here. So the prompt was summarize this device. These are all the details that's given for us. You'll notice down the bottom here that we can go in and add more prompts. We can ask more questions, so we can do that in there as well to get more specific information if we want. Now, the other place that this Security Copilot is rolled in is inside each and every policy here. So let's go in and select Endpoint Security. Let us go in and have a look at any baselines we've got in here. So let's go in and have a look at a Windows 10 baseline. So I've got a Windows 10 endpoint baseline here. So let's go into that, and let's go in and edit some of the settings here. So let's go down here. Where are the settings? Let's go down the bottom here, and let's edit some of the configuration settings. All right, so the idea here is we'll be able to go in and have a look at the settings. We'll be able to query each of the options there and give us more information. So if you've ever worked with Intune and you've wondered what a particular setting is, this is another area that Intune is going. That Security Copilot is really going to help us. So let's go into auditing, for example, here. Now, next to each and every option, you'll notice here there's a little Copilot button. Now, if I select that, that is going to pop open Copilot on the right for me, and it's going to run a standard prompt. Tell me about Intune setting, account login, audit, credential validation. I was basically going to say, tell me what this particular setting actually does. And this is a big time saver because, yes, all that information is somewhere in the documentation, somewhere online to get that information, but having that built in to Copilot is a really, really handy capability. Saves us having to go through and find that particular thing by doing internet searches. It's brought right into the console. Now, you will note, obviously, that it's not an immediate response. It may take a moment or two to go in and generate that, but I think that's a small price to pay for getting the right information on this particular capability. So again, I'm just going to pause it, let the AI work it all out, give me a result, and we'll come back. So we are back here. So you'll see here it's going to tell me about the account login, audit, credential validation, and here are all the setting informations here. So again, super handy, puts it all in one place. You'll see that I can go in and do an additional query down here. So this one, for example, is how could this setting affect users? So if I do enable it, what's going to be the impact? So again, this is a really good example of what you can do, the drill down you can make, and ask more questions to get exactly or specifically the information that you're after. So again, I'll just pause it and let that prompt finish, and then I'll come back. Okay, so it's come back here and it's told me basically what it will do. Therefore, it's not possible to provide detailed information. In this case, I couldn't. I can copy and paste, and you'll see here that I can go in and drill around for more information about how this setting could affect security. So let's try that instead, see if that comes back with any results before we move on. Again, I'll just pause it, let the AI work it out, and then we'll come back and have a look at the result. So you'll see here that we got a lot more information with that query. So if we go through and have a look at it, so how could this setting affect security? You'll see here that it is quite detailed in the information it provides and the impact it has. So pulling that all together from multiple documents, giving us a summary, I think is a really, really big benefit of Copilot. Remember, that's linked to each and every setting inside each policy, so you can go in and query each and every one of those if you so desire. So the idea is that we have Copilot for security integrated throughout Intune. When and if it's needed and when it's available, we'll typically get an assistant on the right hand side. Now that will improve, that will enhance, but typically that's what we see. Now remember that just because Intune has its own console doesn't mean that Copilot for security is restricted. Not just restricted to asking questions and queries in there. So if I jump back to the portal interface, you'll see here that I've done a request, are there any Intune devices that are out of compliance? And you'll see it's gone in there and told us that there are no devices out of compliance. So if you want to, you can work in the Intune portal, use that to get the information. But remember, you can always come back to this general chat interface, and it's going to be able to give you that sort of information as well, because it is connected there, and you'll see how it's getting information from a connected service here, basically, being Intune. So all of that is available to you if you want to go and do that, whether you do it from the Intune interface or whether you want to do it from the generalized chat style interface. Alright, so all of that will be available in Intune once you turn on Copilot for security through the different locations, and that will grow again over time. So another big place where we see the integration with Security Copilot is in Defender XDR. So the best example of this is, let's go into the endpoints down here. Let's go into the assets and go into devices, and let's go into the device inventory here. And this will give us a list of all the devices that are onboarded to Defender for Endpoint. And let's go in and pick the Surface Pro there that we're working on and bring that up. And let's go into incidents and alerts here. Alright, so this is what's happened on this device. Now let's select a particular incident, and as always, that sort of thing will pop up as expected. But what's going to happen here is we're going to have the integration with Security Copilot, and we're going to have that ability to use Copilot over that information. Alright, so I just needed to refresh the page to wake up Copilot because I had this prior to enabling Copilot. So once Copilot for security is enabled, and again refresh the page, you should see that it's going to go in here and generate a summary and a guided response for this incident that we can basically work through. So again, the Copilot for security side of it is integrated into our Defender XDR. So again, I'll wait a moment for that to complete now that I've refreshed the page, and again you'll see it's created the incident summary for us here. Alright, and it's also, there are no particular actions that I need to take because this was an automated investigation, right? So you'll see we've got our Copilot button here, so if we select that, that would pop this out on the right hand side here, and we've got a number of options up here, so we can go in and generate a report. So this is going to generate a report for us, and you'll see here we can obviously go in and learn more about it. So all of this is integrated into things like Defender XDR as well, to give us that sort of information, to generate information without us having to necessarily navigate. So this is really handy because you can get a nice summary. You can also get a summary in the language or in the tone that you want. And remember, we can again go back into our standard chat style interface, and because it's connected to Defender XDR, we can ask all our questions in that environment as well. But it's always handy to have it basically embedded. So you'll see here's our incident report, and we could again go in here and want it to create a response here for our management or whatever. You'll see here that I can say it looks right, needs improvement, or it's inappropriate. So that's going to feedback and basically improve the AI as well. So what I've done here is I've gone in and had a look at an incident that's probably more indicative of what you would see. So we've got a rare and potentially high risk office operation. Copilot's generated an incident summary for us, and you'll notice down here that it's got a guided response for us, and if we want, it's also got confirming whether this was a non-malicious activity. We can go in and we can classify, and the idea is yes, we could do this in the standard interface, but the idea is that Copilot for security is bringing that all together for us in one particular place. So super handy to allow us to go in and do all that in a single location. So very, very handy, especially when doing on-demand incident response style, because it's able to pull that information, display it simply and easy as a window on the right hand side that isn't impeding our work but giving us a hell of a lot more information. So now if we pop over to threat analytics here, you'll see that Copilot again appears. This threat analytics gives us a list of all the known incidents or threats that are out there. And again, we can look at that compared to our environment. Once again, you'll notice that the Copilot is up here. It says we can get insights on the most relevant threats in your exposure score. So let's press that and basically see what that prompts up. That's going to give us this banner here on the right. You'll see here we can summarize and ask. So let's go in and select summarize. So this is going to go through all the threat analytics and give us a summary report. And you'll notice down the bottom here we also get the standard prompt box built in, so we can ask about threat actors, attack techniques, and other threat intelligence. So this is targeted at answering your questions, providing information around threat analytics, which is, all the known threats that are out there at the moment. So again, let's just let that complete, come back and look at the results. So here's the result that it has generated, right? So based on latest threat intelligence, again, you'll see here that we can go in and start querying this. We can go in and ask it about, a particular threat, attack, all that sort of stuff is built in basically for us as well. So again, really, really handy, and watch out for more integrations with Copilot for Security throughout Defender XDR. Now, the last place that I'll show you here is identity protection. So we're back in the Azure portal looking at identity protection. And if we have a look at risky users as a report here, you'll see that when I select that report, it will pop up and I'll get a nice summary here by Copilot. So the idea is, once again, that Security Copilot doesn't necessarily just appear in its own chat style console. It also appears here integrated into more and more components in the Microsoft security environment. So this is really handy, again, to give you that summary when you're in that exact location. And sure, I could go back to the prompt and I could type that in, and I'll probably get the same information, but having it in context here, I think is, super, super helpful. So the idea here is that we're going to be able to enable Security Copilot on demand, and the way that we do that is we do that inside our Azure environment. Once it's enabled, and remember, it's going to cost you $4 US plus the number of SCUs you've selected. I would suggest, as a rule of thumb, best practice 2 is a good starting point, but Microsoft does recommend 3. So if you do that, that's going to cost you 3 times the $4 per hour that it runs, or part thereof. So this current session that we're looking at, that I'm running in this demo, is going to set me back around $8 US to do that, which is a small price to pay for that information. Now, once we've set that all up, you'll see that you get a chat style interface. You can go in and type in information as you would any sort of AI here. We've got the ability to have the prompts. We've also got the ability to connect to different sources here. We can also configure those, add those. We've also got third-party ones if we want it. And again, we've got the ability to select prompts here and also go to our prompt books. So our prompt books are going to be a list of commands, let's say, that would execute in the case of an incident. So it saves you having to type them one after the other. You just type in the prompt book and it'll execute them one after the other after. Now remember, as I said, Copilot for Security will appear inside services like Intune, make it easy to evaluate policies, test policies, and understand what policies do. It will also integrate with Defender for XDR in a number of different places. Where it's really handy, I find, is drilling into specific incidents, getting that information, getting that summary in context rather than having to bounce around different consoles to double check something. And of course, the other option is in the identity protection area under risky user sign-in. Now that we have completed all our Security Copilot, in this case, what we need to do, importantly, is make sure we go in and delete or disable the resource so it won't continue to accrue costs. Now, if we don't do this, you're going to be paying that $8 per hour every hour going forward, and it will add up to a significant amount of money. So we need to go back into our deployment here. All right, so you go into the Copilot for Security environment, and then what we need to do here is basically go in and delete that. Okay, so if I go back to home here, all right, I go back into Copilot for Security, all right, you'll see that I've got this provision here, so I could go in here and basically delete that if I want, do it there. But if I drill into it, you should see the interface that we saw before. Now I'm going to delete that resource. Okay, and it's going to delete that resource, and now there are no more costs being accrued, and I'm back to where I basically started. Now, as I mentioned, the recommendation also is to put Security Copilot in its own resource group inside Azure. Makes it much easier to manage, and the big benefits here are we can go in and have a look at the cost analysis here. So let's go and have a quick look at how much it's cost me over the time. It won't necessarily have the immediate what I've put in there. Okay, so these are all the demos that I've run over time, and we've got an idea of what the costings are. So kind of in the last month, it's costed me about $200 to go in and do a number of different demos over time. So we get an idea of costing. And the idea is we can also go in and set a budget here. So the budget's going to allow us to determine, what our threshold is, and then, whether we get any alerts when that threshold is approached. So you'll see here that we're going to get, some sort of alert condition when the budget hits that amount of money. So that's why I would suggest putting firstly creating a resource group dedicated to Security Copilot, setting up your spend limit, setting up your budgeting alert so you get information about it, and then when we go and create Security Copilot, put it in that resource group. It's going to be a nice tight container that you can work on. But most importantly, do remember that when you've done all the work that you want to do, go in and disable or remove that resource. And yes, it's not a simple one button press for now, but it is what it is, but it gives us the flexibility. So I think that is a small price to pay. And of course, we can configure that on and off using a PowerShell script with the appropriate permissions. So all of that is available to you to automate if you do want to do it. But to me, it's pretty easy to go in, turn it on, use it, turn it off when you need it, and only pay for that time when it is. So this whole demo, like I said, the cost to showing you this was around $8 US to do it. So 2 security units times $4 an hour. That's the total cost. So you can see you can get a lot of value out of it if you use it on demand there. So hopefully that's given you a bit of an overview, a bit of an introduction, a bit of an understanding of how Security Copilot is, how to enable it, how to use it, where the integrations currently lie, and they will improve and enhance over time, and also how to go in and disable it or delete it when you're finished so you're not paying additional funds on that. So hopefully that has provided information for you, and I'll take the opportunity to thank you very much for watching this video.